Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the Raymond Hall Show. I am Raymond Hall, and it's been a couple of weeks since I've been here to welcome everyone to the show. It's been a busy time, so I'm thankful for everyone that continued to view the show and to keep up with what was going on. For a few weeks ago, we were in Sacramento. We were at the California Senior Legislature and what it does is it put forth proposals that address issues for seniors and here in California. It was a mini event. Normally the sessions last 3 days, but this one was only a day. And it mirrors the regular assembly for the state of California. So your senior assembly specifically addresses senior issues, and it put forth proposal, and it selects 10 out of all of the proposals that are put forth, and it gives those 10 a priority. And then those proposals, we, as they say, work the halls with the various assembly people to see if we can get them to pick up that proposal, and if they pick it up, and then the normal legislature go through the legislative process, that it becomes law with the governor's signature. So it's always a significant event because that's how new laws get to the book. That's actually how it works. It starts as a proposal, and then it's picked up by one of your legislatures, and it goes through the assembly process. So that was week before last, and we know last week was veterans, a lot of veterans activities, and last Friday a lot of people celebrated Veterans Day, but Saturday was actually the Veterans Day. It was a twofold celebration for me because the Marine Corps was actually 242 years old, and it celebrated its 242nd birthday last weekend as well. It actually was Friday, I think, that they celebrated that. So there were 3 significant events. I want to tell you one that was just personal to my heart here in the Leimert Park community. Healthy African American Families too had a veterans event, and it was actually a family event. So it was veterans focused, but it was a family event, and it was well attended by the community, by veterans, by supporters, families, and friends of veterans, and we even had politicians. They gave away raffle prizes, and we're going to be featuring that activity in the future, because we want you to see the grand prize winners. This lady actually, only she can tell the story, but I will admit it. It was just something that was surprising to me. She said she needed a new television. The TV was the grand prize. It will take Mrs. Erica Flynn Walker to tell the story, but it's memorialized because we have it on video. But she said she needed a new television, and she said she told God, I need a new television, and God told her to go to the veterans event at the Leimert Park. She went, and she had the winning ticket. So her husband was a veteran, so that made it all much better. And she tells her story when she's interviewed by Mrs. Walker. So that was an absolutely wonderful event. The VA was well attended, and so was the VA in attendance at the Victory Outreach there on San Pedro. Now, I know with an internet program, the possibilities of the program going throughout past the local community is what we're all looking for. So when I talk specifically about events that happen here in Los Angeles, there are things that you can do as well there in your community. So it's in the past, you did not see as much VA turnout as you see now. So at the Victory Outreach, it was at 31st and San Pedro here in Los Angeles. I saw something, ladies and gentlemen, in listening audience, that I've never seen I was discharged in 1973 from the Marine Corps. I don't remember. I'm not saying that they haven't been there, but I just don't remember an event myself when they were there. Normally, you see the Department of Veterans Affairs, you see the healthcare, you see the homeless, you see, education. You may see a lot of things, but I've never seen the regional office, the VA regional office personnel come in. They're important because that's actually where the claims go once they are filed. They're at the regional office. So one thing is definitely true. That is that it's a new day at the VA because they are going all out to make sure whatever services that veterans are wanting to get information on when they do these community events, they come out with the resources that supports a veterans event. So Healthy African American Families, Victory Outreach there at 31st and San Pedro in Los Angeles, I give you kudos. The VA Long Beach, they had a very significant celebration. A lot of veterans attended, and it's always just wonderful being on that campus because they are so active in just staying in touch with veterans and what they need and what they're seeking. So it's always good to be on that campus. One of the other things is that I'm seeing that veterans are getting the message that there is now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot more work to be done. It really is. There's a lot more work to be done. There's many people that's looking for services. You can reach out to us, reach out to us by phone, 323-841-7365. Or you can reach us through Facebook or Twitter or those social media platforms. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but we are a place where veterans can come and they can talk. We're not saying that we solve anything, but we can maybe get you in contact with the right place where you need to go to. The Department of Veterans Affairs, as you know, is the second largest government department it is, with the full strength and force of a government department. So sometimes they're not always as attentive as we want to be, but they're dealing with a lot of veterans with a myriad of issues. So we have to understand that too. We have a unique show today. We have a call-in guest that I'm sure a lot of you all will remember, and we look to have her right here with us again. But today she's our call-in host, community guest and host, Mrs. Erica Flynn Walker. And we were talking earlier because there was a report that just went to the heart of why we are in the economic position to a degree that we are. And this report is titled Finding Home as a Person of Color. Now, she's going to talk to us about the author. It's really a dynamic article, and it gives us some numbers that are it just talks about how we're renters as opposed to buyers, and the wide difference between us as a people buying and other communities and those kind of things. But it's something that we should pay attention to. So we'll be having that conversation and having that dialogue a little bit later in the show. Which brings us to another point. And that point is this. We're seeing recently, I don't want to talk about the politics as we talk it. I realize something. The things that are wrong are the things that are wrong. I'm talking about people's history, okay? But what happens when some news becomes nothing but a distraction? And then if it's a distraction, what happens when you continue and I continue to take part in that distraction? See, someone committing something 30 years ago, but you notice that one person or one group of people can commit something 30 years ago and it's just a conversation, and another group of people can have a parole violation, and before you say violation, they're already in custody and on their way back to prison. You know, so when does things get to be a distraction, and what is it distracting us from? Mrs. Walker and her guest, Tasha Rogers. We're having this discussion on housing, but it brought some things to mind. Keep in mind this. This government, through distractions, have been doing a lot of things. When they talk about the middle class, and I'm getting a little bit better, so I won't say the things that I used to say earlier, but I want you to think about something. They talk about middle class. It starts with middle class. The middle class is supposed to get a tax break. And then they talk about the rich and the ultra rich and all of those kind of things. And they're still coming up with silly stuff called trickle down economics. We're going to give it to the rich and then they're going to find a way to hire you and you're going to be blessed by the trickle down crumbs. That's foolishness. Okay. The things that are a distraction is a distraction, but what's important is the part we play in the distraction. Do you keep your television on looking at the distraction? Maybe you should turn that TV off and do something else. Read a book, go look for a job, do some other things. Because this is not a nice thing to say, and I don't mean it disrespectfully, but just consider this. If they're talking about middle class, what's up under middle class? Low class? No class? Kiss my ass class? Now, if you think it's not real, think about this. Why does a ticket that costs $12 for parking cost you $100? Because what they're doing is funding the government on those tickets that you pay for. The affluent communities, they don't have to look for parking in their communities. They got 5 and 6 car garages. It's only those communities where things are tight. You have buildings where building codes have allowed people to overbuild and people are looking for parking places. So on any given night when the street sweeper come by, the people who go by before them give you a ticket if you're there. Now, the ticket is still $12, but they tell you, well, we want to increase this so they can help pay for schools. Well, if they properly funded the schools, the ticket wouldn't go up. Now, I'm not advocating that people don't need to get tickets for parking. I've gotten a few in my life. That's not the issue. The issue is it's the persons that can least afford things keep being hounded by the people who want to keep their money in their pocket. And the way they do it is to pass the money off to the people who don't have it. Why do you think one of the reasons is that they have put someone who is so dead set against public schools and they are privatizing the schools? Because the people who most often send their children to schools, they aren't raising any sand about it. Are they raising enough sand that somebody would not dare break apart a public school so it can be funded by private school, and then the private school doesn't have to have the same education level requirements that the public school has? Don't have to have the same credential requirement for the teachers that the public school has? Think about some of the things that we are doing as a society to contribute to it. And it's not just Raymond Hall talking. Look at what has happened recently that's encouraging. You have a 24-year-old that became the youngest person to ever be head of a political party when this young lady said that no one had been trying to do anything in her state, so she decided she would. And at 24 years old, she's the head of that party in her state. Look at someone that says that this is the lifestyle of me. It's the issue of that person's lifestyle is not a question to me or a discussion here. It's the fact that that person says, this is my life. This is how I identify my life. And I'm going to do something with my life. So they did. And look at how they won an election. Unseated an incumbent that had been there several years. All of a sudden, the people that's been waving the King James Version and the New International Standard and the American Standard at you, now they say, well, we will not even look at that just so we will keep our party in office. That should tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. It should tell you something. Anything that someone tells you and it'll float this way today and float that way tomorrow, as long as the float is their way, that's not good for you. I'm not recommending anything for anyone. I'm asking you to do something that puts you in a better position. Just keep asking yourself, where am I? Am I with the affluent? Am I with the middle class? Am I with the no class? Am I with the low class? Or is somebody constantly telling me by the way they keep charging me to kiss their ass? Now, you can say what you want. Everybody know what church I go to. If you don't, I'm not going to embarrass the church. So I don't say Raymond Hall start talking about profanity all of a sudden. But at one point, you have to stand your post. And I'm an old Marine, and I'm standing that post today. What you're doing is you're contributing to it when you are biting into the distraction. There was a sign that I saw that I thought was brilliant. It says, run for something. You know, there was a time when we had a sign that says stand for something. This says run for something. I'm not asking you to do anything other than what you want to do. However you align yourself with whatever political party or not political party just says that I will be of service on my block. This is what the Raymond Hall Show is about. The Raymond Hall Show is about service. And I can't talk to you about service and not walk the walk. I got to talk the talk and I got to walk the walk. I've been given a platform by which to talk that I take very seriously. I'm not just here to run my mouth about anything, you know, and I won't judge what people talk about because what they talk about is important to them. This is important to me. At one point, we of color were called colored. And then when it suited somebody else, you became a Negro. And when it suited somebody else, we were black folk, then African Americans, and then this and that. Why is it that you got to be defined behind someone else? There was a point when someone says, I know that I am going to suffer given the time and assignment of me, but I'm going to suffer through this with one goal in mind, that my children will have a better position than me. Is that how we move away? Is that how we move away, that where we don't pay attention to class at all? Don't talk to me about class, because when you're talking to me about class, that means that you're trying to separate the unity that I have with my fellow man, and the unity that I have with my fellow man is bigger than the BS that you shoveling my way. Your community belongs to you. Not for it to be controlled by someone who don't want to pay their fair share. See, when they don't fully fund education, that's how they don't pay their fair share for the taxes. That parking violation still costs $12, ladies and gentlemen. It's the things that they add to it that make it $60 and $100. Okay? I was an avid player of the California lottery. I went with the motto, you can't win if you can't play. Yeah, $1 billion, million, 100 million look good to me. A friend told me, she said, I don't know nobody that's ever won that. And then she said, oh, somebody won something, so she couldn't say that. But her point was that too many people are playing and not enough people are being heard for the winners. So when we talked about this state of housing, it just really brought something to my attention, that we are required to do something with our lives. We should not be herded like cattle, and the thing that herds you is when you can say, I spend more time in front of a television than I do anything else. And I'm talking about this television because I was recently talking to some people, and I was asking them about their situation, and they kept coming back, well, the television, there's so much on the television, and the television, well, when is it that you couldn't turn the television off? Well, I don't want to miss nothing. What you gonna miss? The folk taking your money, still taking your money. The folk shutting you out of the job, still shutting you out of the job. The folk that don't want you to have an opportunity to buy a house near theirs is still doing the same things to keep the same thing going. Mrs. Walker talked about better than 50% of all of people of color, and the Hispanic community rent, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we rent all of our lives. We never move to that position of ownership, and that position of ownership is where this country has delineated. That's where the real wealth and the path to wealth is. At some point, we're supposed to change. If we see that things aren't going the way that they should go for us, we should make a change. Going into 2018, I'm not asking you to make a resolution. I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm just thinking about the fact that you'll still be here in 2018. What difference can you make? What difference can I make? If service begins with you and I, then what kind of service can we begin that will make a difference with someone else? We've got to say to ourselves that we no longer will be a part of the distraction. And when we see that we are contributing to the distraction, we have to make it a point to do something differently. There's all kinds of things out there where you can be of service. If you see that you're being taking part in the distraction, go and ask your library, when is the period where you can read books, be a part of that program? They have Read Books with Children. You know, what is the community center doing? What is the senior center doing? What if you're looking for work, try looking for work just an hour more. Try looking in 2 or 3 different places. If you look in the internet and can't find it, then where else can you look to try and find that job? Service. We have all kinds of conversations, pro and con, on how the nation got here. We're all here. I can't comment on let me change that. I won't comment on the path that the White House was occupied, the presidency was occupied. I won't comment on the fact that the AK-47 is a weapon that was invented by a Russian and used on Americans in wars. But all of these things have to do with you and I. The Raymond Hall Show is a platform where meaningful dialogue will continually be discussed. I'm never going to suggest for you to take option A, B, or C. All I want to ask you to do is to consider those options that are put before us and what those options really mean. Yes, we should look at the options in the light of what it means for ourselves, but what does that option mean in the light of your children and your children's children? Should not they have a chance? Should not our children in our community be exposed to, woke up this morning and they were talking about a piece of art that sold for $400 million. And I'm not saying it's not in the community, but has the Disney been on your list to visit? The Disney Art Museum or the Museum for the Children? Every healthy thing that was in the community, grown in the community, a point is made to remove it because that's something that they can bring back to the community and take your money. I was absolutely amazed after I got to California. It was a thing they called a fruit fly. Now, the orange had been so synonymous to California that when you saw the California seal, it had an orange in it. And all of a sudden, California was barren of oranges because of a fruit fly. And now oranges are 99 cents a pound if you go some places and $2.49 a pound if you go others. When at one point, all you had to do was walk to a tree, any tree, and pick a piece of fruit. That's not something that is outside. That's been the plan all along, is to make you and I pay for everything, even the things that was given to us of nature, avocado, oranges, lemons, those things that was granted to you through the service of others, a free and decent education. As we talk about the disparities between housing, look at where you are. It's not going to change overnight. If you really think that God has something to do with the money just because they have on the money and God we trust, I'll ask you to do something like those who teach me, who are skilled in the word. I would just ask you to document that. In God we trust is put on the money by man. That's something that they did. We do trust in God, but that money ain't got nothing to do with it. You see, anytime you see a system that greatly benefits someone at our expense, we today have to start taking a look at it. Now, why are these young people that have made this step and said that I will make a difference with my service, why is that important to our community? It's important because someone has given us a demonstration. Someone has given us an example of how to lead. They say, run for something. So run for your PTA. Run for your school board. Run for your neighborhood council. Do you really think that your life was given you so you could have a mediocre life? That you would not make a contribution through service to someone? You don't have to know the person that you're making a contribution to. Just be in the position to make that contribution. So we're going to be starting with housing, and we're going to be talking with housing. The things that come before us, it's so distracting because it takes us away from the things that we need to pay attention to. And some things are just aberrations. They should not happen. I can't explain them. It's difficult to see children steal when they don't have to steal. It's painful when someone who has demonstrated that they are not exactly concerned about our children, the children have to make a statement of gratitude. I ain't drunk and it ain't raining. I'm telling you the truth. We should never, ever lose focus of the fact that we are connected to each other through the very fact that we are here on earth. In the coming months, there will be some new programming by me and those that work with me. We work collectively together to do what we do. But I want you to pay attention to the word be. Just be. B-E. And when you add the ing, you have being. So you're in a active state of being. Just like walk. Walking, you're in an active state of walking. Talking, you're in an active state of talking. Sitting, you're in an active state of sit. So be, you're in an active state of being, and as a being, as a human being, that means you have connection to other persons in an active state of be. You have connection with a person who is of the humane active state of be, human being. And as we recognize that we have kinship with this human being, that's where all of those things that, as some people call them blessings, as other people call it, it just comes because you're doing what you're supposed to do. And when you do what you're supposed to do, those things that are supposed to come to you through you doing what you're supposed to do is going to come to you. We can no longer turn our heads and say, it's okay. If a parking ticket is $12, then give me, if I violate a parking rule or code, give me a $12 ticket. Don't fund fire and police and everybody else because you don't want to properly tax the affluent. Don't give me a $150 ticket because you don't want to properly fund schools and public education. Everyone, run for something, stand for something, do something. And then I guarantee you, when you do go and look at television, you'll see it clearly. Why are all of the people that they put in this place of so-called power, the majority of them, a super majority of them, are Caucasians? But when you look at the fabric of your community, where is your representation there? Earlier, we talked about the preamble. Mrs. Walker talked about when she would go to her grandmother's house, and she talked passionately about how looking through the door of her grandmother's house reminded her of the preamble, because the preamble affords and guarantees certain things. And she knew as she walked in the door of her grandmother's house, it afforded and guaranteed certain things for her. And she talked about how others, that when they came to visit her grandmother's house, they weren't guaranteed. The guarantees were there, but their look into the house, their thoughts of when they came to visit Granny was a different thing. Well, I want you to look at something else as well. I want you to look at what is being afforded you through how someone who does business that benefit them but doesn't benefit you, but yet tax you. Where have you heard that? It's called taxation without representation. And the framers, you don't have to talk to me about the Constitution wasn't written for us and this and that. That was then. This is now. The framers of the Constitution, which covers you and I, said that no, it is not legal for there to be taxation without representation. You cannot continually tax a certain part of the community and you say, well, it's your fault because you parked. Well, who gave the ticket to build all those apartments on top of each other where there is no parking? Who is it that turns away their head to the fact that you have ignored certain things and paid attention to other things, and all of that added to the overcrowded living and parking and existing conditions in the neighborhood in the first place? See, you're going to have to scratch the dirt on your own consciousness. And when you reach an understanding with your own consciousness, you're going to have to say, well, I have a consciousness not just for myself. I have a consciousness that's supposed to help my neighbor as well as help those that are in the future of me. I'll share something with you. I didn't get it until I got it with Tupac. Now it's hard for me to get my radio off of him because I love his message. I love his message. I love his energy. And I am excited about how he speaks to a future community. 30 years ago is dead. What are you doing about the things that's coming up? We're going to take a quick break for a minute, and we'll be right back in a minute or two. Just give us a quick break. We'll be right back. Okay, and thank you so much for the continual tuning in. We have our guest that we talked about, Mrs. Erica Flynn Walker, a host of the Raymond Hall Show, and her guest is Miss Tasha Rogers, and we were talking about housing earlier today, and that's one of the things that we want to talk about. Now, we only have about 10 minutes left on the show, so what we're going to do is if we have to, we're going to make this a two-part thing. We're going to talk about it today as much as we can, and then we're going to come back to it. Mrs. Walker, Miss Rogers, are you all there?
Oh, just Tasha. What you going to call you? Miss Rogers and Miss Walker. Yes, we're here. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing fine. We've been talking about just community issues and those kind of things, but I shared with the listening audience that you had shared this article with me, and it was just so impressive that I wanted you to share those highlights of the article and what you all thought. So talk to us about it and tell us who authored the article. Where did the article come from?
Okay, the article came from Zillow Group. It's a consumer housing trend report from the United States Census Bureau, 2016. It's from the F1 median age by ethnicity from U.S. Census Bureau Current Population Survey 2016.
Okay.
And it's concerning housing.
Okay. Now, so talk to us about the disparities that we were talking about. That just jumped out at you.
Well, first of all, it highlights finding a home as a person of color. Mm-hmm. People of color, in particular African American, Black, Hispanic, Latino households face significant challenges and frustrations throughout the process of finding, selling, and even owning a home. Mm-hmm. Often feeling less supported than their counterparts Caucasians. While some difficulties are attributed to different educational, financial, and social circumstances, others are compounded by long-standing historical setbacks. So
now, what does that long term is that? Are they talking about lack of economic abilities or lack of knowledge of how to apply? Or did they cover a number of things?
Okay, it basically, relative to the Caucasian white households, people of color have a unique and significant challenge as they navigate the housing market, namely their age, their income, their geographic concentration, and access to credit, and systemic historical discrimination.
And yes. Ms. Rogers, when you looked at the article, what came to you? What was some of the significant things that came to you about the article?
Is it that the they and the we and the them? That's what came to my mind. How everything is so separate when it comes to the outlook of things.
Okay. So they've all. It seems like that they to you that they've already got it. We go over here, they go over there, and them is the one that's holding on to everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's what we were talking about earlier. Okay. Now, if someone wanted to read this article, where would they go to read it? I see on a copy it says Zillow Group, Consumer Housing Trend Report 2017.
Or they could also go to the United States Census Bureau.
Okay.
And these numbers that are staggering, then I'm just going to give you a little bit of the numbers as far as what we're basing this upon are unrepresented among today's buyers nationwide. 73% of all buyers are Caucasians, which means that less than 24% are minorities. And then it breaks down after that. They account for 13% of each of all U.S. households, only account for approximately 8% to 9% of homeowners, respectively, when all the numbers are tabulated as far as we're concerned, African Americans. So, again, they can go to Zillow It's a trending topic, and also they can go to the U.S. Census Bureau.
Mm-hmm. Now, did it offer any kind of resolve? I really appreciated when you spoke about at some point we need to stand up on the energy and the knowledge that we have, and a person needs to just put away $1 or $10 and just put themselves in a position to buy. At some point, it's okay. This is the message that it's okay if you are not in a position today. I'm not saying it's okay, but consciousness gives you a foundation. So once you have that consciousness that I'm not ready to buy a home, that's step one. Right. Step two is, how do I position myself to be in position to buy a home? And step three is repetitive. I keep doing over and over those things I need to do to put myself in a position to buy this home.
Well, let me just start by saying this is all just from, I'm giving my perspective. Tasha has her perspective on what needs to be done. There's three things: your mindset, your demographics, and your what was the third thing? Your mindset, your demographics, and your execution. Once you get your mindset that you're going to make some changes and you do want to make a purchase of a home and you want to apply, then you're going to need to put some strategic things in place to start putting something, just stacking something away for the side. That's just one thing that you can do to start. And in the article, it does give significant, things that you can do, which is to start stocking some money away and start preparing yourself for the purchase process, rather than just never even having it as a thought of something that you would like to do.
Okay. All right. Well, what we definitely going to have to do is we're definitely going to have to revisit this article because, ladies and gentlemen, I printed the article out, and I mean, there's got to be a good 6 or 7 pages here to be digested. We're headed over into 2018. 2017 is not over yet, and it continually have us asking questions that a lot of times we're just not prepared to answer. Slaughter. People are being slaughtered in every type of environment or circumstance that they can. So it just brings us back to how can we best live our lives? And one of the best way we can live our lives is to live our life so that our life is an example to someone else. There was a person this Veterans Day shared something with me. Darlene Taylor. She told me that she had a neighbor who served in Vietnam, came back from Vietnam, was at home less than a week. Somebody was harassing a lady in the neighborhood. The soldier went over and said something, and they killed him. And it made me think about this message of service, service, a different conversation. So he continued to serve after he got out of military service, and it cost him his life. People are sitting, going about their business, doing work and worshiping and going about their business, and somebody's coming up slaughter. We need to pay attention to get as much out of our lives as we can. Ladies, I want to thank you all, and I want to guarantee you that we're going to revisit this issue. We're just flat out run out of time. And I just want to thank each and every one of the listening audience. Ms. Rogers, thank you again. Ms. Walker, thank you again. We look forward to conversation in 2018. We are readjusting, ladies and gentlemen, our path. I don't have time for the little bubblegum conversations. There's nothing there but bubblegum. There is supposed to be substance in the life of each and every one of us. There's supposed to be a place where I am going to live the best I can, but I'm going to make a contribution in the lives of others. Right. That house that Ms. Walker talking about, There's a house waiting for you and I and everyone else when they have that mindset that she talks about. Okay?
And then they need the strategies and then the execution, because ultimately we all want to be satisfied and feel that we are a part of the society that we live in, and we all have equal opportunities to each and every thing that we set our hands for, which is, just to live a decent, clean, happy, fulfilled life.
Okay.
That's what we all want, right?
That's what we all want. Well, I'm going to leave you like I started today. Everybody be talking about the middle class and the upper class. I'm telling you about what's below it. You got the low class, the no class, and when they charge you all that money, they're telling you to kiss my ass. Because they're taxing you with that money so the rich don't have to spend the money. You stand up somewhere where you say, I ain't part of your no class, I ain't part of your low class, and I tell you to come on across the other side of town and tell me to kiss your ass. You start paying your fair share, Mr. Gazillion Billionaire. You start funding schools the way they're supposed to be funded. You start paying for health care and education the way it's supposed to be. This is a land where service has afforded all of us the opportunities to have an opportunity.
It's true. I do concur. We do concur. Well, thanks a lot to all the listening audience. We appreciate it. And we look forward to following up on this conversation, because it's a very in-depth conversation that we can't just, get into. But we do look forward to next time. Have a great day.
This is the Raymond Hall Show, and we are thankful for each and every one of you. We'll be back this time next week. And to all of the audience, tell a friend to come on with you and join us. You can follow us on the social media platform. Again, our number is 323-841-7365. I'm your host, Raymond Hall, and as they say, I don't have to leave, but I got to get out of here. Bye-bye, everybody.